probably going to bring up the issue. Last week we didn't get a point of clarification in regards to the issue with the chief, because I'm going to be bringing up again today. Mr. Williams, when you mentioned to the council a couple of weeks ago when we dealt with the issue, you indicated that there was no imminent need for these funds to be transferred, but that looking forward and progressing forward, there would be a need sometime closer to the end of the fiscal year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. However, if you wait till the end of the year, then you don't have time to make the adjustment transfer. So you're right in that there's no line down over that trust. Right. How do you need to? If you anticipate it is going, then you need to make plans to take care of it somehow.
But would we not have, knowing now what we know now, in regards to, would we not have an opportunity to be prepared to address it at the appointed time prior to the end of the fiscal year? I mean, we've done that in the past. Okay. Let me ask you this. The officers that we have on board, they've already been hired. Okay. Are their positions and salaries included in the budget?
Well, a part of what included in this projection was made on the April the 13th. There is and some higher central.
How many are hired? 6 are hired. How many are we trying to get on the vision? We only have 6. So say the 6 that we're getting
hired after the April the 13th.
Okay.
So the reflection of April 27th. I don't know the projection on that.
Okay. So they're on board. They've been hired. The money's there. The money was there when they were hired. Is that correct?
Money is not going to cover them.
So there's no funds to cover them, and they've been hired?
We got to deal with, we have two different issues. We need to transfer some money, and we need to raise some additional revenue. That's what the alternative thing would do, is also to cover those 6.
We'll cover those 6 also?
Yeah.
And what would the budget reserve be?
Cover the ones that are already, that were on April 13th. So there's 2 separate issues. We need to transfer the money, and then we need to increase the revenue.
Okay. Well, then that's kind of what I'm concerned with. That's what I've got. I'm being stumped with that, because if they've been hired already, then the funds should have been already readily available for them to be on board. We don't have, they shouldn't have been hired without appropriate authority or authorization. But it seems as though we've hired these people without the appropriate authorization, and now the request is to come back to the council, albeit through the budget reserve, and to validate their hiring, because they were not, when they were hired, the funds were not initially there. Well, if that's correct, then that's a problem. That's a very big problem. Chief, I'm sorry.
Good evening. Good evening. Council, Mayor, my constituents, and all the good citizens of the city of Prichard. I'm Jimmy Gardner. I'm the Chief of Police for the city of Prichard and responsible for the public safety. Today I come for 2 reasons. First, I'd just like to take a moment to talk about the I-Ticket initiative. And again, I'm asking that the council move that initiative forward as we spoke over the last several weeks as it relates to that initiative. Just to reiterate some of the things that I shared with them last week, I don't have to tell you over last year that the city of Prichard dealt with over 9 fatalities over last year. I don't have to tell you how desperately we need to consider having a traffic unit. Reason being too that normally the patrol units that are out in the field that's answering complaints from our citizens, when there's a traffic accident, 2 to 3 of those officers have been pulled away from answering ordinary complaints. And at that particular time, these citizens go without 3 additional officers to cover the 25 square miles of the city. And it would behoove us to actually move this initiative forward. We have 0 involvement in making this happen. The vehicles are being made readily available by the company that we're involved in with this initiative. All the electronic equipment as well is a part of this initiative. And as you very well know, if you take the time out to review the I-Ticket initiative, you will find that that information is readily available. I just want to share as well that over the last several weeks, and I don't tell the public, I get complaints all the time about the number of speeders all out throughout this entire city. We did, in March, we did a review of the northbound 65, where we looked at over 800 vehicles traveling in excess of 89 miles an hour. 807 vehicles were clocked during that period. 280 of those vehicles in nearly 79 miles an hour. 630 of those vehicles was near 69 miles an hour, which are all considered super speeders, almost in every case. In March the 7th, we did the same thing for 6 hours. We looked at over 6,360 cars. We locked speeds at 3 cars was over 90 miles an hour. 6 cars ranged right at 90 miles an hour. 1,653 cars ranged nearly 79 miles an hour. And then 1,428 vehicles was clocked between 66 and 69 miles an hour. That's excessive. On I-165 up here, we actually clocked vehicles in excess of 120 miles an hour. I can't say how important it is for us to seriously consider this opportunity for the city, and particularly what it will provide in terms of traffic throughout the city. Facing the road, which is nothing but another speedway. We got to consider this. This is important. And again, I'm asking you to give great consideration as it relates to this I-Ticket initiative. Councilman, if I may, I would like to move on to the important part of talking about the budget. In this last week, and I don't have to count the weeks prior to this week, our officers have been put under great demand, and it didn't just start. Just this past week, where we had someone to enter into one of our local establishments, the Galaxy. 3 young black males, 17, 18, 19 years old, heavily armed and masked, with patrons and employees at that location, but we had to respond to them. And God knows it could have been bloodbath. And God did not allow that to happen. We were able to respond to that incident, and during the course of that, life was spared. I had a young man that said he had a bead on one of my officers that he would have killed him had he not looked out and saw the number of officers that was there. I had our good citizens who were out here in this audience right now, who had guns placed to their head by these same young black men. We got to continue to be able to achieve the manpower, issues and concerns that we have so that these citizens can be protected and they can be safe. Whatever means that are necessary for us to get that achieved, whether we're talking about in the near days to come, in the near months to come, whether we got coverage, but we can't afford to go backwards, and we can't afford to lose what we already have. And more important than that, we must continue to hire officers so that we can meet the challenging needs of this community. Our citizens so gratefully deserve that. They demand that. There's no reason that we, and I'm speaking to council, that we don't move this initiative forward. We're trying to be accommodating for the needs of the police department so that these great demands that are being placed on the police department to be met. I can't tell you the stress level that's involved as relates to men and women who are part of this police department. And many of our citizens experience that when they have contact with them because they're overworked in that way. Many, many hours, the countless hours that we spend in terms of overtime, those kinds of things, because of the lack of that in the manpower arena. We got to fix this. We got to fix it. And it's not about, it is about the budget reserve and taking that money and put it to use. We got to do that. And we can't delay that process. We must move forward. I I can't say enough, I can't emphasize enough that the citizens deserve this. I know they want it and they need it. And as chief of police, I'm begging you to give great consideration before we go into some of the language that we use in terms of why we shouldn't. But you should make every effort to make sure that we do. Council, I appreciate you. Thanks.
Again, this brings me back to, let me applaud the chief again. I think last week I made it clear what my perspective is as far as public safety and standing behind it. But there's a manner and appropriate way to do everything. Now, before he even spoke, he was just declared that the process from which this being tasked upon the council is already one that has been inordinately established. And I don't want to interfere the chief in this process. He's trying to just do his job, and we stand by that. But what he fails to understand is that the manner in which the council has to approve these things is of great concern and question. And there needs to be some further clarification on it. Greg Williams' finance director just indicated that these officers have already been on board, have already been hired, and that there perhaps wasn't funding in place at the time they were hired. Now, for the council to move forward and approve it, to say it's a done deal, it's not the appropriate way to do it. It's an unauthorized hire, and the expenditure should not have been made. And then to ask us to do it with the budget reserve, all pots of money. The budget reserve, which is specifically set aside for emergencies, state of emergencies, and issues regarding public health and safety. Those are issues and concerns that have to be left alone when there have not been any, or when there are no other further means or manner to seek funding by way of cuts or appropriations from other departments, except for having to go to the budget reserve. All the council knows is that all we did was go straight to the budget reserve and say, well, here's the money, let's just use it. To me, that's not good fiscal management. To me, that's just finding the easiest pot to pull from and to cover what apparently appears to be wrong in terms of how we budget this process to move forward. And I don't think the chief wants us to do anything outside the law. He is the law. I can't expect him to want us to break the law to make it right because there's a need for officers. So it's a major concern. And we still have no budget plan to attack the exact needs. I provided the council with read. Did you have a chance? Okay. Let me have this down for that. Thank you. In the document that I was able to provide to the mayor and to the council earlier today, in this document, there's some concerns that really the council has a fiduciary responsibility to look through and to act upon before it makes a decision. Now, if we were at the end of the fiscal year and for some reason we were already running out of money, then I can maybe perhaps understand the need for the expenditure of these funds. We are in May. When this came up 2-3 weeks ago, we were at the middle of April. I'm trying to understand what the emergency is. And for the record, declaring the state of emergency is not the responsibility of the chief of police nor the mayor. That comes under the auspice and responsibility of the council. So there is no state of emergency declared. There's a need for it. Obviously there's an excessive want for it. But in order for the council to move appropriately by the law to approve this and to establish it, it has to be in its proper manner and it has to be done correctly. I don't think a citizen here wants us to do something outside of the boundary of the law. Period and simple. Chair, if I may, let me expound on this document that I have given. I would ask that it be made a matter of record.
Yes, we had a long agenda, and earlier we asked Mr. Reed that we just want to make it a matter of record.
We'll make it a matter of record. But let me touch on this.
We can take this up in finance committee meeting a month ago. We already passed it.
Have we decided to move forward to the finance committee meeting? Because it needs to go there to address the situation. Because it's a grave concern as to how this request is back before the council and hasn't been established appropriately. I mean, the entire usage of the budget reserve this early is a grave concern, and there has been no other means looked at. And I'm sure there are plenty of places in our daily operation and fiscal management we could have found money to appropriate this. But we have not looked at other means. We went straight to the budget reserve and said, here's the money, let's use it. And that's not accountability. That's a bailout. And I don't think anybody wants to be put in that position to approve these funds in that manner. So I would ask that the document would be made a matter of record to the council, and that a finance committee meeting would be set to address it more appropriately, because there is time. The letter that was given to the council from Rex Williams, well, first of all, when we asked about this, he indicated that it was, he just reiterated that again today, that the monies are there now, which is a question of concern, but nevertheless, they're there now. So I'm still trying to put my hands and my thoughts around what's this big deal about an emergency and getting people all excited and fearful that we won't have officers on the street. To me, that's sending the wrong message, and I can't support that. And it's wrong to establish that and put this council in a position as if we do not care for the safety of our citizens. That is wrong. But even in this letter that was sent to the council last week, that no line item is over the plan currently as it relates to the police department budget. However, if spending continues at the present level, by August, this is May, they brought this up in April. He says this, by August, if the cost exceeds the budgeted amount, as a result, we recommend that the council will approve a transfer of funds to accommodate the increased cost. The projections are based on the year-to-date usage through April the 13th, which meant the monies are there now, and they'll be there unless for some reason we expend it. And then, I don't want to take this as a threat, but it's not good for department heads to put in writing, let me explain the impact of a no vote. I think he has stepped outside of his boundaries. I respect Rex highly, but this is not a place of his. By indicating that if for some reason we did our fiduciary responsibility in approving these funds, or if we failed to not vote for it for good reason, that they would have to begin the process to terminate enough personnel to bring the cost within approved limits. There's a problem with that statement, Mr. Chairman, and it needs to be dealt with, and it shall.
Chair, I just want to say, since I hear my colleague stating that he wants to refer to refer to the finance committee, and I would like Mayor, if I may, to ask your employees that, because there are, in looking at this report and checking myself, there are some innuendos in there in this report for my colleagues, Mr. Ekron. And I would wish that you would definitely look at number 3 and make sure that you are ready to expound on that, because I already know the answer to that. Okay? I really do. So if it is going to be referred, please take care of the innuendos. Because when you talk about making a document a matter of record, we can talk about the law on one hand, the truth can prevail also. So when you make it, it usually comes back to haunt you if you don't mind. So those innuendos in this document from my colleague, especially if you look at number 3, and there are some others on there. So please be prepared to correct those. Thank you.
Talk about the pension fund, the pension contributions being exhausted. Obviously they are. That was the funds used to fund the lump sum payment we made it later.
Thank you.
I think that's against the law. You should not have been doing that.
That was in the budget. That's different discussion in advance. So obviously you knew that.
No, it was in the budget, but that did not make it. Brad Davis.
Mr. President, Senator Chief, and Mr. Williams, doing a great job. I sit here, and it really bothers me to hear the manipulation that is going on, because it's all about citizens. This is not about politics. This is about our citizens, that we need officers on the street. They're complaining to me, you all are calling the police chief and everyone else. Now, while we need to be sitting up here worried about a budget reserve that we never used before, because we hadn't had a hurricane or anything else, they transfer them funds around. What you're doing is creating a financial crisis. The finance director is solely trying to give you an opportunity to do the right thing while we're trying to actually take care of our citizens' safety. So the budget don't have to think. The way it goes is the mayor has it, or make the proposal to you all. And it's up to you all to make the decision. The chief is doing what I requested him to do. The finance director is doing what I requested him to do. There's no way else to cut any money from.
Why should we let our citizens suffer while we sit up and let somebody sit up there? No, it's time for you not to do that. And let us give these officers that the chief had went out and actually recruited to tell them that at a certain point, we can't go over our budget line item because the council, that's what some of the council members want us to do. And we're going to have to lay you off. These folks left the job to come get this job. They wouldn't walk in the street. And they said they want to come here and do the job they need to do to support and work in this community to protect our people. I would assure you, if we didn't have the number of officers out there right now, this weekend would have been a lot worse than what it was. It's time to put away these things, and I ask you all to transfer these funds at an appropriate time, and let's move this shit forward. Now, anything else, okay, I'm the back. You come back, I don't mind the heat. I've been in the heat for a long time. So keep bringing it. So let's do the right thing. And let's keep these officers on the street, and let's move this city forward. Let's protect our people.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with one thing you said, and let's do the right thing. And the right thing, as far as the council is concerned, is follow the law. And that's what we will do. And even you should accept that.
Change the law.
Amen. We need to change the law. Mr. Riggs. Okay, what fund are you anticipating your first short fund?
But you can't wait till the last minute. If we feel that the money is not going to be there, then we have to start acting now. I recommend it. I tell the mayor and council that if you continue as you are, you're going to run out of money in this line. So
okay, well my question
so
is, the month that you're going to run out, the month that you're going to run out, you anticipate running out in August.
somewhere in that.
Okay, somewhere in August.
So we also can't wait till the last minute.
Of course, I get it. I understood that very well. Now, say for instance, if we wiped out the budget reserve of all his funds today, and Chief Gardner has another incident that he just had last week, how are we going to pay those officers?
Well, there's money in the cover that. If you talk about other emergencies, there are.
I'm sorry. Okay. My question was specifically
You mentioned the last week is payroll. Give you a line out of the salaries and overtime and it's all there.
Okay.
It's what we're saying is that the increase to cover the annual cost.
Okay. But what if we have an incident like we just had, and we wiped out all our budget reserve, and you have to call up some officers for overtime? How would they get paid?
And like we're proposing solutions on the internet.
So if the overtime budget has money in it, why can we not take overtime budget monies and put it in this?
Because overtime is running ahead of the budgeted amount of law. It is over the budgeted amount for the year to date, so and proposing also to increase that. So an incident is not, a one-time incident is not affecting your budget. It's the long-term, it's the number of our people you have.
Well, that's what he said when he was speaking. A one-term incident would cause.
Well, if you have 10 officers for one day, you'll call that an overtime. It's not a huge part of your annual budget.
Okay.
And as far as emergencies that somebody's referred to, we do have special funds that can be used for emergencies. So that's not an issue either, really.
Which funds do we use for, other than budget reserve, which funds would you use?
Well, that's not part of it. That's not the general fund, but you have other funds, special funds, that could be used should you have an emergency. You know, if you're talking about like a hurricane or natural disaster of some sort.
Okay, and I think we've been in this situation before. And the situation before that we were in was, I want to say 09 or 10, when the administration went over budget
right around $500,000. And you all didn't bring it to our attention until after the fact.
And you asked at that time to bring it to your attention as soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
So I'm telling you now.
But no, you have to, because you because you hired people. You hired 6 officers that are not in the budget. So, you know, that would be the same case that we had in 2010. You expended monies that are not in the line items.
But these 6 officers would have been paid by the side traffic proposal that you have already approved. What I'm proposing now is that the members that would increase our revenue. So you've already approved our traffic thing, which would fund 6 officers. After you're not going to give it an amendment, which would improve our funding.
But those 6 officers that we were approving was for traffic, right? But that's the high traffic, so that would not be these officers here, or they all the one and the same.
But you don't have a separation. You don't have a separation. These are over in one pot and the others are in another. It's all part of the police department.
Well, it just seems to me that in order to avoid confusion and a lot of misnomers about what is and what isn't, the proper thing to me would be to attach a specified budget plan that relates specifically to this expenditure. So the council would at least have some knowledge of knowing as to where, what, and how, and when. So we have some comfort level moving forward. I saw that. That's not this doesn't tell me, and this just tells me this tells me the line item you're taking it from and the line item you're putting it to. That is not a budget plan. That is just
the reason for it.
Well, then I suggest we get somebody here to know more about what we need, because that's not simple enough.
I'm advising you that if you continue too hard, we run out of money. Now, the council and the mayor need to know that.
But don't we have at least, I would say we have at least some money to determine whether or not there's additional funds that can be used with an office. And they're hired. But they're hired now. They're hired now. And I don't think you're going to fire them tomorrow. You're not going to fire them next week, not going to fire them next month.
If money's not going to be transferred, yes, it needs to be fired. You have to terminate if you're not going to fund.
So the money's not there then? Because I keep hearing that there's no money there, but I'm at the same time hearing if you don't do it. I mean, is it there, is it isn't? I mean, tell me what is it?
If the funds for tomorrow's payroll day, yes.
Okay, so we got to use the week then.
What we have is, we got 6 officers in hopes that we were going to get this contract higher, which the funding from the traffic was support them, that's revenue. The other transfer that the finance director is talking about is very simple. He is saying, if you wait until July or August, then, and let these people stay on, you will succeed in line item in the budget. But if you transfer the money now, he wouldn't have to worry about July and August trying to get to the end of September, to the end of the budget year. And he won't have to let these people off. He can't wait to July and August and say, well, we got to move all line items. He's doing the right thing now, bringing your attention much earlier. Much earlier.
Let me ask you, take it from the budget. Would the money not be there then?
Or would you approve?
That's not a question.
No.
I'm sorry, you're missing the point. If he needs to do it then, would the budget reserve still not be there?
If you don't transfer, it will get going.
If you don't transfer, it'll be there.
If you don't transfer, it'll be there. But why would you put this city on identify that as crisis? That's your intent. That's your intent.
I have to put it aside. It is what it is. I think we heard enough of the truth. And
The thing is,
I'm not going to break the law to make it right.
I sit up there. And another man made recommendation, it was up to us to approve it or reject it. So now, I made a recommendation, that's what the law says. If you want to go get the state of Alabama law and talk about all sections, that's what it does. You recommend it, and it's up to you all to approve it or reject it. That's what the law says.
Thank you.
Robert Martin.
Don't Martin, we got you.
Good morning, Robert Martin, and I want to stand before you today as a private citizen and a supervisor of the Prichard Police Department, requesting this amended budget and transfer money plan to help us alleviate stress on officers, the complaints from citizens, also related accidents and injuries, overtime being paid to ranking officers due to these shortages, and reports not being turned in a timely manner due to officers being overworked and stressed out. The citizens deserve better, and so do we as officers. Should you consider and approve this request, not only will this help us alleviate this, it will give us a means to hire more officers, which will alleviate the stress on the presently employed officers, increase the productivity by cutting down on the response time to calls and allowing officers to complete our reports in a timely manner. This will also cut down on overtime and allow officers to receive the proper rest to perform our duties and assist the citizens of Prichard as we swore to do. Earlier in my tenure, I was given a task that I thought was hard or even impossible. And upon going to inquire from one of my supervisors as on how to go about this task, they simply replied to me, "Get it done and make it happen." So this evening I stand before you as these elected city council members of the city of Prichard. I implore you to get it done, make it happen. There are vacancies in our department that have not been filled by patrol, CID, on up to administrative positions of assistant chief, 2 majors, along with 2 administrative assistants. We have 8 new officers fresh out of the academy that have filled in the slots of past officers that have left before these 8 were hired. But that still hasn't put a dent in the number of officers we have. The new recruits we are attempting to hire and send to the academy will now be replacing officers that have recently left. There are still people on the budget, but no longer work for the city. Since January 1st of 2012, there have been 5 officers that have left this department. Lieutenant A. Daniels, Sergeant J. Meade, Officer A. Barnes, Officer P. Wyatt, and Officer M. Mendiola. Soon there will be 6 officers transferred to the traffic unit, and their salaries will be paid by the I-Traffic agreement themselves. This will bring more money and revenue to the city. With this amended budget and money transfer plan, supervisors will be able to supervise the shifts properly, better assist the citizens, have quicker and more courteous response times, and the morale will go up. Due to there being an abundance of personnel, as well as funds to cover the necessary equipment and supplies needed to perform our sworn duties. So in conclusion, I once again implore you, let's get this done. Let's make this happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank God.
Good evening, everyone. Protocol, Mr. Jones, I just wanted to come and show my support today on the law enforcement, the mayor, the council, department heads, in particular the public safety department, with the events that's going to happen, you know, with the manpower we have. It's wonderful to see the things that get worse, that didn't go south as it could have. Did want to say that if we could find a way to continue to keep our public safety department stronger, make it stronger, it'd be great for the city, so the city's growing. Thank you very much.